All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben, the Jet Reds. Ben, how's your week, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I got no complaints. The teams I love are winning to an extent.
To an
We'll
extent.
talk about that. But all is good. How about you?
Things are good. I mean, we're recording earlier this week on a Tuesday because the Eagles play on Thursday, so it's nice. It's nice getting it out of the way early. So, I'm excited for that. But first, as usual, we are going to start talking about the Kings. And last time we spoke, they added one more win to the win tracker here, so we are now at 6 wins. Um, They've played 3 games since we last spoke, and they went 1-2. And listen, dude, I think the only place we can start this conversation with the Kings is I and I want your opinion on this. I think this is the worst 3-point shooting slump that I've seen. I think in the De'Aaron Fox era. I don't know how you feel, but these guys are missing. They're missing everything, and it's costing us games. So what do you think about that, dude?
Yeah, it's horrendous to say the least. I would agree with you. I think this is probably the worst shooting slump that I've seen a Kings team go through since the Foxy era has begun. I when I look at this team and how they're moving the ball offensively and from just top to bottom, it doesn't make sense how this team is shooting so poorly. So since we talked last, there's been 3 games. And in those 3 games, I pulled some quick 3-point stats. Okay. I ran all the numbers for how many attempts teams against us have had and all the attempts that the Kings have had. So our opponents in those 3 games are shooting 54 of 133 attempts from behind the arc, which is good for 40.6%. Now the Kings are shooting 24 of 81 from behind the line, from behind the 3-point line, which is good for 29.6.
Yeah.
So not only are they not taking as many attempts, and it probably has to do with the fact that the ball just isn't dropping. They stop shooting. I don't blame them, but you're also making less of a clip. So this is a scary recipe, and this is something that they need to figure out quick.
Yeah, I didn't. And the other added point of it is like, yeah, so on the flip side of things, our offensive system has changed where we're making and taking the most amount of mid range shots in the league. And that has worked, especially in clutch time. I think it's important. But we run into this issue where we're taking significantly less threes. Like I think we're only throwing up we're averaging about just under 33s a game. And that's not, in today's NBA, that's not normal. And, you know, Matt George pointed this out on Locked On Kings is we wonder if this is a recipe that could actually work if you're trying to play catch up and teams are making threes and you're only making twos. Obviously the law of averages, it's harder to live that way. And we saw against Phoenix, like Phoenix shot poor. They shot around 38% that game. But the Kings also shot horribly, but we were able to get away with it, which is weird because they were the hottest team of the bunch that we played. But that's the issue that we run into is that these teams that we play against, like the Spurs going into it, Wembanyama was shooting 28% from three, and then he decides to hit his first four out of his first 5 in this game, and then they're hitting contested shots. Like obviously, again, we've brought this up that they're leaving a lot of shots open for some of these guys due to the nature of how they approach their defense, but even the ones that are contested are going in. So
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, this can't last forever, and it doesn't make sense, like, but from both sides, like we are the most extreme version of this 3-point slump, and I just wonder if it takes one guy to get better or 2 guys, and then maybe it just starts clicking. But when DeMar DeRozan's shooting 40% from 3 and Domas is 38 and then nobody else is higher than 35 out of Kevin Herter, De'Aaron Fox, and again, we've mentioned the thumb thing or the hand thing that he has right on his shooting hand that could hinder his shooting. But Keegan Murray shooting 29% from 3. So what? I don't know what the
Mm-hmm.
heck is going on. I don't know if it's the extra movement on defense, or it could just be shots aren't falling. We don't want to fall. We're hanging in there, but we don't want to fall too far behind, and I'm nervous about that.
Yeah, and that's the key is now, we look at this next 2-week stretch, which has a lot of tough games in it. And in a lot of ways, you're already behind because you should probably have, I would say, to be honest with you, I think they should be at worst or at best 8-2 team. I
Yeah.
think I think that there's two games in there that just they let go when they didn't need to, and it came down to just shots not falling, and then the other team being in a rhythm and knocking down contested shots like you talked about. And Katie made a great point in the game last night. I think it was in the third quarter, maybe the fourth quarter, where the Spurs were just starting to make those contested shots, and she's reacting to him, and she's like, there's not much you can do about that. But at the same time, she also said there's not much you can do about it when you've let them find a rhythm early in the game, when you let them have essentially warm up jump shots to start the game from wherever on the court. You let a team get comfortable, you let guys get comfortable, and then in the fourth quarter, it doesn't matter if they have a hand in their face or not. I mean, I've seen the ball go in 8 times now. I'll throw up my ninth from the logo, and it's probably going to go in. Like
Yeah.
it's that kind of mentality. I don't even know if it's a mentality thing. It's that kind of breakdown defensively that we're seeing from the Kings that is going to get them in a lot of trouble, especially as you come up on games where you're not going to have a key player.
Good point. So that key player is going to be Malik Monk. In the Suns game, he rolled his ankle it was either Plumlee or Allen. But it was pretty bad. But they ruled it as a moderate ankle sprain, so he's out at least 2 weeks. Now, no guarantee he comes back exactly after 2 weeks. It depends on how his ankle responds and everything like that. So we're playing these next 5 games. 4 of them are at home, so we have our first legit home stretch of the season, and it starts on tomorrow against Phoenix again. And Phoenix is without Durant again. We're facing the same team we just beat. But if they were poor, they shot poorly last time we played them, and I don't think that same result's going to happen again unless we're up in their grill again. But losing Malik Monk, we're losing a ton of scoring. He's been like, our bench has just not been it this year. Like, Keon's struggled a little bit to find a rhythm. Trey's struggled to find a rhythm, and then it depends on McLaughlin or Len, or we've seen McDermott at times, like who depends on the situation, I guess. But where do you think, who's going to be the most important, or maybe few guys who are gonna need to step up for this team?
So this is the tough part about it, because Malik is our spark plug microwave scorer off the bench, and he's somebody that we don't just rely on for points off the bench, but we rely on him for effort off the bench. And it's not to say that the Kings haven't been putting in effort off the bench, but if I look at statistically what Malik brings to that bench unit, looking at the Kings overall, they're 29th right now in bench points, coming in at 23.1 points per game, and Monk supplies 12.6 of that. So at that point, it's like you can't just take 12.6 out and say, oh, it's okay, we'll just get 11 points off the bench and the scorers will handle the rest. No, you need to have somebody step up offensively. Now, when I look at the other side of things, Malik isn't a great defensive player, but he's an effort player. And a lot of the times I don't see the same effort out of the bench unit that I see in Malik Monk. And so it's hard to pinpoint for me personally who needs to step up in this frame, in this time frame where Malik's not going to be here. If I have to, put that on somebody, I would probably place a lot of it on, and it doesn't make sense, in terms of position, but I would put it on Trey.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trey Lyles needs to step up. We've seen him in a little bit of a funk, just like the rest of the team to start this year. But when we look at 2022 Trey, and we look at some of 2023 Trey, we saw a player come off the bench and supply hard minutes, good minutes, where he was productive offensively, defensively. He was in the way. He actually put his body in front of ball handlers. Like, it was, you saw a good version of Trey Lyles that we need to get back to. Because I'm not going to lie, a Trey Lyles who's playing like this isn't a Trey Lyles I want to keep around. Because it's minutes off the bench that I'm like, really, what are you supplying for the team right now? And I have full faith that he can get back to that shape. I mean, he's been battling with injuries for the better part of a year now. Um, and so, finding that rhythm has been a little tough for him. I think once he does find that rhythm, and if he does in this stretch, he's going to be the key guy for me personally, especially to bring in that scoring punch. I think he's going to be essential.
Yeah, for me, I would have to put it, and I agree with what you say. I think Trey is important. He needs to start heating up because there was a few of these games up until I forget up until these past couple games, he wasn't getting the same level of minutes. Like one of the last guys off of the bench rotation. Um, and that wasn't what we thought was going to happen. We thought it'd be Malik and Keon, but like it'd be a little bit more even. Um, but Mike is really, I don't know how much he trusts these guys off the bench right now. And I think Keon is going to be extremely important, especially from a guard standpoint. I think the role that they have him right now, because last year when he played, he was starting. Malik and Kevin weren't there, waiting in the wings. He was the guy, so he had to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think what I've noticed from Keon this year is that in the limited minutes he has, he's been more of that connector, right? He'll still, hit open threes if you're open, defend as well as you can, and then make the right play. But when it comes to the bench, he's now just going to have to be a little bit more aggressive in the way that we kind of saw him in summer league. I'm hoping that kind of aggressiveness can come out a little bit more. And if he can step it up a little bit along with Trey, that'd be huge. And if McLaughlin, he looks like he's been finding a little bit of a rhythm. If McDermott maybe gets a little bit more comfortable for 5 to 7 minute spurts a game, we can survive 2 weeks if freaking Kevin and Keegan are consistently hitting their threes. And it's tough. Like, we're in a weird spot because of we don't know when this slump's going to end, and we don't. And one good game, like, that doesn't mean it's over. So I just wonder, when are we going to see a consistent run from these guys? And that is the part that worries me. We're still 6-5. We're still very much in the playoff race. The West is tough. Like the West, we're only a game behind Minnesota. So realistically, we're not as far back as we feel, right, as it feels right now, given the circumstances we're in. But when we go up against the next 5 opponents we played, we've already played them. So there's a level of familiarity from both sides that, oh, hey, they know we're without Malik Monk, so they can attack us a lot more differently than with some of these other teams could. So, it starts with this Minnesota game, and this is the first NBA Cup game. This is the first, playoff atmosphere game. We did really well against Minnesota in this setting last year, I think, and we won both of those games. But, we struggled against a guy like Julius Randle last time. We'll see what happens in this matchup. But we really need to win these games at home. I think, to be in a great spot, we need to be 3-1. And I don't think that's entirely, off the table. I don't think that's going to be impossible now, but this team really needs to dig deep and find a rhythm. And hopefully maybe playing at home, maybe traveling less, getting comfortable back into the routine of things will help them out.
And that's the hope of it, of course. It's just so hard because the stretch that they're in right now, they're struggling to defend the three ball, and they're also struggling to shoot the three ball. And so it's like the perfect recipe for just complete failure. And it's really scary to think about, to be honest with you, because this is how your season can get completely flipped upside down. You don't know what 10 games from now looks like. You don't know who's going to be on your team. You don't know how you're going to be shooting the ball. You don't know how the rest of the league is going to be looking. So we talked about that home stretch and what it means in December, January. And to not be able to find a rhythm before you establish that home court stretch where you're playing essentially 80% of your games at home, like, you, at this point, you have to make it a point to, if you're not going to be making your three ball, you better be shooting like almost 50-60% from inside the 3-point line, because that's the only way that you keep up with these teams that you're allowing to shoot so well from behind the arc. Like, I want to talk about that Suns game for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it went to overtime, right? But can we talk about the fact that the Suns shot the three ball 57 times? And like, in my head, I'm thinking, wow, they were just like trying to get anything to go. No, when you look at those 57 attempts, I kid you not, 35 to 40 of them were open. And that's like against a team like the Warriors right now who are cooking, against teams who have 3-point shooters up and down, which should be the Kings, but
Yeah,
weird slump.
exactly.
Teams that can shoot the heck out of the three ball, if you're giving them 40 wide open attempts a game, you're going to lose this game by 100 points, especially if you're not making any of your three balls. So this is a really touchy situation that the Kings have gotten themselves into.
Yeah, I think the weird part about this is like the way this team is playing right now. I feel weird because right now for the regular season, it's not the way to win. But the way we're playing now, the way we're shooting from inside, making contested, mid-range jumpers, DeMar's doing his thing, De'Aaron's hitting tough shots, Domas is, executing. I think this team is built to be a playoff style team. Like once you get into playoffs, once it comes down to these tough mid-range shots that you need to generate that level of offense from, that's where we're going to excel. Oh, get to the free throw line, make your free throws. Great. We're doing all those things. But in the regular season, in this marathon we have to keep up in, we need to execute from three. And we need to we can't dare teams in this modern NBA to beat us from three because anybody can beat you from three, except if you're playing yourself. So I don't know. There's no easy solution to this outside of like make your shots, but there's a rhythm factor to it. There has to be messing with them mentally right now. They're trying to figure this out and navigate and still try to win games even though they know they're not shooting well. So it's tough, and I commend them for winning these games that they have won. But this recipe for the regular season, we're going to run into these issues if it doesn't change within these next 10 games. If we're still shooting this poorly 20 games into the season, I don't know what's up. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and this is a frustrating situation because if we take a step back from all of it and we look at every single game that the Kings have played, I mean, record wise, they're 6-5. You're above 500. So you're not on the necessarily the losing end of things right now. If you step back even further and you look at how many double doubles did Keegan Murray have last year as opposed to this year, like he's already passed or is tied with his same amount as all of last year. Keegan has been a monster on the boards and crashing the glass. He was responsible for that tip in that sent us to overtime against the Suns. Like he's been awesome, but he can't make his threes. And then DeMar and De'Aaron together have been the clutch duo that Kings fans and the organization dreamed of having when DeMar signed here in Sacramento. It was like, holy crap. Like, and this was the vision that we saw. And so all these like really good little things have been completely overshadowed by the 3-point shooting, giving up, and the way you're shooting it. So I really want them to figure this out quick, not just for the sense of you don't want to fall behind in the West, but I want them to figure out quick because if they do, this team is going to be rolling. It really does come down. I don't even care what you're giving up on the defensive end if you're making 15% more of what you're shooting right now. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Right.
It's not like we're losing these games by 20 plus points. We're losing these games because we haven't made 3 or 4 or 5 more threes.
Mm-hmm.
And it simply just comes down to making those open shots. Keegan sees so many open corner threes. I can't tell you how many. And he makes them look, but he probably makes 2 out of every 6 wide open ones. Not just 3-point attempts. Like, it's the wide open ones. So, and De'Aaron and his finger. Matt George talked about this a little bit in his postgame last night. You can't keep making the excuse with his hand because he's not making that excuse. And that's a really fair point. Like,
for sure.
They've asked Foxy about it. He's like, is that hand bugging you? Is the hand bugging you? Don't worry about the hand. Don't worry about the hand. I'm fine. Well, you're shooting the piss out of the ball, but it's not going in. So like it's frustrating from that sense because you want to use these excuses. But the overall excuse is just that they're in the funk. They can't get out of this right now. And the only way to do it, you've seen it time and time out, you have to keep shooting the ball. You can't stop shooting the ball.
Right.
And that,
Agreed.
like, to shoot 81 threes when your opponent shoots 133 over the past 3 games, that needs to get better. I don't care that the ball is not dropping. You need to shoot out of this slump. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but if you're going to make 24 of them, I still hope you're shooting 124 of them.
Yeah.
Like, because that's the only way you do it is you try and find your jumper. You try and find the things that are working. And I love what I'm seeing from the mid-range game. I love what I'm seeing from the crashing the glass aspect. The pick and roll game has just been phenomenal between Sabonis and anybody out there, really. But that three ball needs to drop soon.
Yeah, and that'll fix a lot of our issues if it does. So that honestly, coming into this, that was kind of the biggest takeaway because that's been the one glaring thing that's been holding us back. And it's obvious. Everyone in SAC knows. Everyone who's watching SAC knows that if we just make 5 to 6 more threes a game on average, we're winning, 5 more of these games. So it's like,
Exactly.
so it's tough. It's tough. So hopefully, maybe the NBA Cup game is going to be the game that turns things around. Maybe the matchup with Phoenix at home will turn everything around. And it's just gonna maybe it just takes one game of confidence to get these guys back on track. So hopefully it comes soon, sooner rather than later. So we'll see what happens there. But do you have any final thoughts before moving on to some football here?
I'm just excited for the NBA Cup. I've been watching a few of these games that have started up tonight while we're recording, and it's we talked about what it's like to have that tournament, and we were a little weird about it when we heard about it initially. We were like, "This is a cool little concept," and then we saw it last year, and just how much fun every game was, how competitive it was, not just from our team and our team's perspective, but across the league and it boiled down to like the last second in so many of these games, whether it was a 10-point game or not, because you look at that point differential that matters so much in every single one of these group stage games. So it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. So Friday's our first one against the Timberwolves. Let's go get a dub, man. Let's start it off right. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just need a playoff style atmosphere inside a Golden One Center to really get rocking and find that jump shot.
Yeah, and I know the first major homestand is going to get this crowd going. They're always up, they're always there, so it'll be really fun to see what happens there.
Best fans in the NBA, man.
That's right. All right, so we are now going to transition onto some football here. So we will be right back. All right, we are back to talk some football. So we are going to start with the more eventful of the two games this weekend, with the Niners and the Bucks. Ben, I'm just going to give the floor to you. Guys kind of snuck away with that. How did that feel for you?
It felt like we snuck away.
Yeah.
It was a win is a win, but
Amen.
sometimes you want them to be a little more convincing than they turn out to be. And the way that the Eagles came out against the Cowboys was, I mean, it's everything you want to see, right?
Oh yeah.
And we talked about with the wide receiver issues and overall injury issues that the Buccaneers have been dealing with and were dealing with going into this week. They had the Niners situation of a couple weeks ago where their wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 is out, and they're relying on 4, 5, and 6 to really take over the game. And look, there's a whole post game out. I talked about it, and I really enjoyed talking about it. It's nice to be able to get that out. I break it down a little further, but it boils down to, I'm just going to say it. This team will not win the Super Bowl with our special teams playing the way it has been all year. And that's not just the field goal unit, that's the punt return unit, that is the kicking unit. Like there hasn't been a consistent unit in special teams that I've been confident in yet this year. They've been responsible for so many errors and miscues that have just set our main teams, our offense and defensive teams up for failure. Poor field positioning and just, up and down, it's not a good look. There was lots of chances that our special teams could have put games out of reach with a field goal. Haven't done it. When you just had to catch a ball off of a punt, you didn't do it. When you just had to take a knee and not fumble the ball, you didn't do it. So it's just all these little things that have stacked up and been the reason why this team is only one game over 500. Because yeah, there have been offensive woes. Yeah, there's been defensive woes. Yeah, the red zone is weird, and yeah, whatever. It's special teams, guys. It's special teams. Like, if you had consistency in just special teams, then we would have field goals that actually mattered, and you wouldn't have terrible field positioning with that your defense had to try and stop. Like it's tough. You just set yourself up so many times with so many disadvantages. And it's been the reason why this team has at least lost 2 games. I think that 2 of those losses flip. And guess what, Marcos? We have the same record if our special teams just makes a play. So it's terrifying because I've talked about how this team needs to get back to the bowl. And this is one of the last chances just with this core that this team is going to have to get a Super Bowl. And to think that our special teams unit could be the biggest thing getting in the way of that is frustrating.
So, okay. I agree because like Jake Moody went what? He was 3 for 6, right? Obviously he made the game-winning field goal. But I want to talk about, what everyone else is talking about regarding your special teams, because not just you seem to be pissed off with your special teams. Niners players, specifically Deebo Samuel, felt the need to give a personal message to the specific kicking unit. So do you want to relay that a little bit? I want to know your opinion on it, because it's been the talk of the town this week. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. If you want to break it down for us too, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jake Moody misses his 3rd field goal, which miss it once, sure, he's shaking off rust. Miss it a 2nd time, okay. 3rd time, Jakey. Come on, man. You can't be missing 3 field goals, okay? That's first of all. And I might talk about that a little bit more here in a minute, but after his 3rd miss, Deebo went up to Jake Moody and said something to him about, just missing his 3rd one and essentially holding him accountable. And Tabor Pepper, who's our long snapper, he gets in between him, which I love. I think it's a great thing to do as a long snapper. You got to have your guys back. And that's when Deebo shoves Tabor's neck and just walks away. Now, I'm looking at this 2 different angles. Okay. You're in the NFL and you're making the same mistake 3 times over. You need at that point to be held accountable, whether it's by your teammates or it's yourself. And at that point, if you've made the same mistake 3 times, you're not holding yourself to a certain standard and you're not holding yourself accountable enough. And so for Deebo to go up and challenge Moody like that, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that one bit. Okay. I like that he challenged him. I believe that when you hold someone accountable and let them know like what they've been doing isn't working and that they need to adjust and correct like what's going on, they will make that adjustment. Because sometimes you just need to hear it from another person. And I'm not saying that like that was the reason why Jake made that game winner, but I think it could have played a major part, because knowing that there's that much more pressure, not just from yourself and the fan base and making it for the team, but like somebody just came up to you and challenged you who is a major piece of this team. Like he's going to have a good say in whether you should be on the team or not. And I'm not going to say the front office is going to go to him and be like, should we keep Jake Moody? No, but if Deebo is getting after somebody who's continuously making the same mistake over and over and over and over again, it starts to play in the back of your mind as an organization. So I'm not mad at that. Where I do disagree with Deebo, you're wearing a captain patch on your chest. You have a C on there for a reason, because you're made to be a leader. You're meant to be a leader. A leader doesn't shove your teammate in the neck and then walk away. If you're going to shove somebody in the neck, stand 10 toes down. Like when you're just walking away, it meant that you didn't mean to do that. So don't do it in the first place. That was my thing. Like you're wearing the C on your chest. As a captain, absolutely hold somebody accountable. Absolutely get on them. But don't make it physical. And I get tempers are heated. Like you're coming off of a bye. This season has been a mess all over the place, but you're still in the mix of things. And so that's why this game had so much weight to it, because you're still in a spot where you can do something. And yet your kicker has missed 3 straight field goals. I get it, Deebo. I totally get it. You are justified. But you're not justified in taking physical action like that. Now, with that being said, that's my take on it. After the game and Monday, they talked about they asked Kyle and they asked Deebo and Tabor Pepper and Moody about it, and all of them said this is squashed. Like, this is something that talked about on the plane. It's over in the past. All these guys have posted about it now and said this is what good teams do, and I believe that. I think that's true. Good teams do hold each other to that standard. You hold each other accountable. I think that when tempers flare, certain things happen. It's happened to me. You know, when I was a captain, I wasn't perfect, but you do have to take a sense of pride wearing that C on your chest. And I think this is the first or second year that Deebo is a captain on the team, and it's a learning lesson for him. Is one of the biggest things I'm taking out of it.
I think I joked in the group message when we watched it in game and I saw it, when we saw it happen live, I was like, oh, he's gonna have to answer for this. And it was only because it was the neck. Like, when it slowed it down, it was right here, right? And the only complaint I have about this is there is a million different ways you could have gone about this. Like, hey, just a simple, aggressive pat on the shoulder if you wanted to make a point, and then say your piece to Jake Moody and then move on, right? But for a professional athlete who has the level of hand-eye coordination, it didn't feel like he didn't mean to. Like, he knew kind of exactly what he was doing, and it sucks. Like, because the attention should have been, yes, Jake Moody missed these field goals, and that definitely was a talking point. But then it turned, and then now Deebo has to answer this all week, even though everyone says it's squashed. It's going to be talked about, and very much kind of like in the sense of like how Nick Sirianni was yelling at the Eagles fans. It has the same kind of energy of like, yeah, you're attacking your own teammate, but then again, it's football. Like, it's a physical, intense game, and there was a lot on the line. Like, you couldn't afford, this game. Had he made all of his field goals, if he went 6 for 6, we're talking about what, a 30. I can't do the math right now, but you're winning by at least 9 more points.
Yeah,
So
31.
Yeah, so then it's a totally different game, and you guys were in control the whole time, and it wouldn't have come down to this last possession. So it is, I don't blame. I stand with you in the sense that I don't, I think that Deebo was trying to motivate his guy, but I think there was different ways you could have done it. But it's good that everything's squashed now. I believe the team that everything's squashed. They got the win. That's all that matters. They survived another week. Especially because when you have a team like the Cardinals, who are excelling right now, you can't afford to fall behind, because the way the NFC is playing out, it's wide open. But the problem is 10-6 won't get you a wild card spot this year. It doesn't look like that. The Niners and potentially the Eagles have to win their divisions. Like, these games are, every little thing matters more now. So especially now that bye weeks are over. And that's the other thing. You guys were coming off of a bye, and the Bucs were coming off of a Monday night game against the Chiefs that they went to overtime on. Like, it was, this shouldn't have been, and it, again, had he made the field goals, it wouldn't have looked as close, but that's the situation they were in. So, okay. Any final takeaways on that game itself that you want to point on before we, squash everything else here?
Yeah, I think the last thing that I'll say before I get into some final little props for some players around here is the CMC effect. Having Christian McCaffrey back was awesome.
Dude, that
And
catch.
and so specifically having him back affected the pass game more than it affected the ground game. And I talked about this in my post game. You can go back and listen, like I said. But we ran the ball a planned 18 times. It ended up being 22 because Brock scrambled for 4 of those. But 18 times, 16 of them CMC, and then 2 of them between Isaac and Jordan Mason, which is a whole thing that I don't think is. I think that's a little weird. I don't think that that's sustainable. But having Christian McCaffrey back in this one opened everything up offensively, and you could see it. The Niners, they didn't necessarily have their way, but they were moving the ball fairly easy, especially in that pass game. I mean, Purdy ended the game with 353 yards and no interceptions, and that's the first time in his career with a passer rating, I think, of 119. He had a great game, and it showed. I mean, I talked about that a couple weeks ago, having that ability to check it down to Christian McCaffrey instead of taking the deep shot. It's like it's almost like Kyle and that offense is trying to prove a point that Purdy doesn't check it down. Y'all, we know he doesn't check it down. It's okay. Take the check down a couple times. And that's exactly what he did. You have Christian McCaffrey wide open on a wheel route versus taking the deep shot to Jauan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall, and you take the check down because it's first down or it's second down. You have one more. You played the little game. And that's what got you a long way in this one. Offensively, receiving wise, everybody ate for the most part. And that was what was the most fun to watch with this team, because through the air, this team is one of the top in the league right now. I think they're second in the league. And they just flex their muscles in that regard. Like I said, I'll go right back to it because it is the biggest problem. If Jake just makes his field goals, this whole thing that we did before, this isn't a conversation, because offensively this team dominated. And it was more of the same of what I saw last year. And this was just week 1 of having Christian McCaffrey back. So it was exciting in that regard.
Yeah, that wheel route catch that he had, that was a big play, and he broke open, and Brock just dumped it like right in the bucket for him. I was hyped, dude. I was like, oh, this is sick. This is great. I mean, he had a bunch of great throws in that game. Kittle played really well. Pearsall got his first touchdown you brought up. Yes. That was awesome to see. Super happy for him after all he's been through. So like, that's cool that we're finally starting to see the first round pick get integrated truly into this offense. So I think and yeah, like you said, like you guys were moving the ball like with 350 yards through the air, like that's comfortable. So it's just like you said, leaving points on the board, and it's not just the red zone. It's right now special teams. You can survive red zone issues if you're just getting points. So it's tough. But you guys snuck away with the win on the road, so that's also another good thing too. And now you guys play your favorite, it seems like your favorite divisional matchup, at least Brock's, because he's undefeated against the Seattle team, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you feeling going into this now? I know it's early because it's Tuesday, so I don't know what you're feeling, what the reports are on injuries and stuff like that. I know it's going to be a little tough this week to kind of go off of that. So was there any injuries that came from this game or anything that we've heard so far?
Unfortunately, there were. So right after game time, there really wasn't much to report. It was the same thing that Renardo Green has been dealing with a toe injury, and it was still kind of a thing. By the way, Renardo Green has been playing great as a young cornerback. I love the guy. So shout out to him. But yeah, that was the only thing that was initially reported. Now, Monday morning, Kyle comes to the table and says that George Kittle is dealing with hamstring irritation, and it's something that he's been dealing with for a little bit. But it had a little bit of a flare up. He'll be limited in practice this week, and status for Sunday, he quoted, is unclear at this time. So I'll start with that. There's a couple others I want to point out, but just not having Kittle is a massive hit, because Kittle has historically been great against the Seahawks. And especially with the way that the Seahawks defense plays tight ends, it's a game that Kittle can eat on. And I would expect him to eat if he's able to play. So it's a little bit concerning to hear that he might not play. Again, we're recording this. It's Tuesday. This is going to come out Wednesday. A lot's going to change between now and then, between now and game time. I think he'll be a go, considering the standard, or rather the position the Niners are in. You can't lose this game. You can't lose really any more games, but especially this one against a divisional opponent. You need to get this tiebreaker 100%. If you're not going to get any of the other ones, you got to get this one. So I'm hoping that George is going to be out there. Now, our punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, is dealing with a back injury. He had a little bit of a flare-up. And that's not great to hear either, because punting the ball is part of special teams. And to not have a punter that you can rely on, Mitch has been one of the best in the league since he came in.
Mm-hmm.
And to not have him to put that thing in the 15 to basically 1 yard line, which he does so consistently, it makes you wonder, what that's going to look like. As far as those are the only things that were reported after this game. Dre Greenlaw's practice window has not opened up yet.
Okay.
I expect it to open up soon. But as of right now, he's still just doing some light workouts on the sidelines. nothing official, no contact or anything like that. Same thing with Talanoa Hufanga. They are seeing if he could play with the cast and kind of feeling that out, but I think we're a couple weeks away from seeing one or both of those guys at least. So
Okay.
definitely some things to kind of keep an eye on, especially with the George Kittle and the Mitch Wishnowsky thing, because you look at how many times we punt a ball in a game, you're probably going to punt it 3 or 4 times in a game on average. But it's an art that I think is really underappreciated, because being able to place that ball as far back as you can, but also not going into, a touchback area, you can almost end a drive before it starts if you do it right. So that's a little bit of a concern. Not having George Kittle, like I just said, he can do some damage against the Seahawks. He's proved it before. And again, we'll see if he plays. I'm hoping he'll play. I think he'll play, but not having him could get interesting.
Yes, but again, given the stakes that this team is in, it really does depend. And so, okay, so I'm curious what your thoughts on, because I know you brought it up a little bit in your post game, but going into this game, now that McCaffrey's back, it's week 2. Why not an even load? Like, do we think that, you know, that Kyle could separate a few more of these carries, or is he just gonna stick to his guns and just let McCaffrey roll out there? I mean, I get it. It's 11 weeks into the season. He's fresher than any other running back in the league right now. But, do we want, I get the significance of these games, but like, why not, when you've had success with these other guys, why not do a running back by committee and potentially extend some of these drives and keep guys fresh, and you always have a fresh back ready to go? I don't know. I don't know if that's weird to you or not.
So I we got to look at it a couple ways. So when you don't look at how many times in total we've ran the ball, and you just heard from me that Christian ran all of them except for 5 basically, you'd be like, whoa, what the heck? But 13 carries was all that Christian McCaffrey had, which, if I'm looking at a typical run game for the Niners, that's half the load. I
Yeah.
mean, we already saw Jordan Mason and go for, I think, 29 carries at one point, and that was a full load. So Christian McCaffrey still kind of got a half game load on the ground. It was just that the game plan going into this Bucks game was get the rock in the air and beat them through the air. Like, it straight up wasn't to beat them on the ground, and that showed. I mean, you didn't run the ball hardly at all. So I'm not super concerned. Where I would be concerned is if I'm seeing Christian go for 31 carries and I only see Jordan Mason and Isaac split for like 5 or 6 carries. Then I'm like, yes, we're overusing him. And it's not even the fact that, like, I'm worried about Christian at that point. It's like, why not hit them with 3 different looks? You
Mm-hmm.
have a super shifty running back in Christian that can do things that, I mean, only Saquon Barkley can do. And then you have a guy in Jordan Mason who is like a mini version of Marshawn Lynch. And then you have a guy in Isaac Guerrero who is just beat you with speed up the gut. So it's interesting to see if Kyle gets on the ground 30 plus times and he's only using Christian. I would be disagreeing with him, because I'm not a coach, but I'm just looking at that. Like, you have 3 different ways to beat a team, especially if you're not blowing a team out doing one way. Why not switch it up? And I'm
Yeah.
not about switching up game plan, but why not switch up a look here or there? Give a team a different look. And that was something that I talked about earlier in the season that the Niners just were failing to do, was give teams different looks. They would give the same look coming out of halftime. And they did the same thing in this one too, to start it off. Like, it seemed like this team was going to come out and lay a goose egg in the second half like they've been all season. I mean, the point differential, they put it up on the board. It was insane. It was like plus 24 on the year in the first half for the Niners and minus 40 something in the second half. That's
Yeah.
horrendous, to think that you're getting outscored 40 something points in the second half as the 49ers, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. So we'll see what that looks like on Sunday if Christian pounds the rock. But the Seattle defense, they suck in a lot of ways. when I look at them, they're 22nd defensively overall, 27th in rushing defense. So you talk about that game plan, what it looked like in the Bucs game. I think in this one we could see a pretty hefty game from the running backs, and that's a key for me in this one. I mean, pound the rock, use all three of them. Like it's right there. You just need to pound the rock, get it going, and then it opens up everything else. One last little injury thing that the Seahawks have is DK. DK Metcalf was sidelined for weeks 8 and 9 with an MCL injury. And so Mike McDonald said that he's doing well. He should be back at practice Wednesday. He expects him to play. But they're going to evaluate him. They're going to see if he's good to go. I mean, they're in a similar situation. I would be surprised if he's not a go. But he's banged up. So it's all the more reason to just get points up because DK is not going to be full strength.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So then you made those points. So what will be your score in this game? Because I know you're confident. This is a team that, you've had a lot of success with in the Brock era. So, and obviously the way it played out last time was because of special teams. Again, that was the reason they were so close last time. But if you had a score, it's at home. How are you feeling for this one?
I think this is a breakout game. I don't think that the Seahawks can hang. And I expect this 49ers team to go out there and show dominance in a offensive way and a defensive way. And as far as special teams, they just need to show up and not lay goose eggs. And this game is over. I've got the Niners putting up over 30. As far as what exactly, I would say 35. I'm going to say that we punched the ball in 5 times. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's pounding that rock on the ground. And when I look at a defensive aspect of this game, Geno, the last time he played the Niners, threw the ball 52 times. And he was picked off twice. Both of those were, in my opinion, due to Nick Bosa pressure and pressure that he was giving him all game long. Like, he was wreaking havoc back there. And so I expect more of the same from Bosa. I expect him to be a menace. And, in terms of the Seahawks pass game, they're first in the league, but 27th in rushing. So you kind of know what to expect with this team. You have a game plan going in, not just offensively, but defensively. It's not like they're middle of the pack in every sense. No, they're really bad in one or two ways, and then they're pretty good in other ways. So you can plan for this game. There's a way to beat this team. They're dealing with injuries the same way you are. But this time you're at home. So it's just taking care of the football, going out there and playing how this team should, and they'll get the job done. So I'm going to say 35. We'll say they get 2 touchdowns in the field goal, putting them at 17.
35-17, that's a good one. I say they might get a little bit more. I would say 35-24 for my score, but I'm confident that the Niners will win. This is a matchup historically recently that they've been very successful in. The stakes are too important, especially if you want to shake off all the bad news that came from this week. A great showing next week will take care of that. So that'll definitely be a good sign. So you had a few little nuggets you wanted to touch up on before we switch on over here, so I'll let you take the floor. Go for it.
Yeah, so one last little thing too is Jauan Jennings. He played the X position in place of Brandon for the first time in his career, and he played it perfectly. Kyle Shanahan already said that he'll be playing the X position the rest of the year, and personally, I love it. I love the effort that Jauan brings game in and game out, play in and play out, and I just expect him to continue dicing up defenses the way he's been doing all season. He is a true wide receiver 1 on so many teams, and a true wide receiver 2 or 3 on damn near every team in the league. So shout out to Jauan. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. It's killing it. Deommodore Lenoir got paid today.
Yes.
He got a 5-year, $92 million extension. And Marcos, what month is it?
Dude, it's November.
The Niners paid somebody in November?
No holdouts? No way.
No, that's crazy. They got to do a holdout. They got to do a hold in. No, come on. No, this is a good look. First of all, Lenoir is a great player. I had my issues with him last year in terms of growth. He has silenced me. I have not talked garbage on him one bit this season. He's
Mm-mm.
been one of our best cornerbacks, and in a lot of ways, our best cornerback over Charvarius for a vast majority of this season. And he's so young. Like, he is only going to get better. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league, up and coming cornerbacks. And, as of week 11, Lenoir has only allowed touchdowns. He hasn't allowed any touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he's just 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, a forced fumble. He's flying around the field. He's hitting guys as hard as he can. Like last year, he slammed who was the running back last year? Put him in the dirt.
Who, my running back?
Yeah.
Oh,
Who was
gosh.
that?
Was it Sanders? It was probably Sanders.
No.
Gainwell.
I think it was Gainwell.
Yeah,
He put him in the dirt. Like,
yeah.
he hits hard. It's like Malik Mustafa, but he doesn't have the body he does. He just hits them with passion.
Yeah.
So, shout out to both those guys. Shout out to Deommodore getting your bag. I mean, he deserves it. And
Absolutely.
and I also just want to say shout out to the Niners for getting that deal done in November and not waiting as long as you have. I'm hoping this is a little bit of a tide turner for this team and how they view contract negotiations.
For sure, especially since they had the cap to do it. That this was a great, perfect opportunity to reward a young player who's grown every single year of his career, adapted to new systems with defensive coordinators coming in and out all the time.
Yep.
So, that's great that he's blossomed into the player that he is. And no, that's a great move by the Niners. Surprising. When I found out, I was like, oh, this is super cool. So, no, congrats to him. That's awesome. All right. Are we ready to talk some Eagles here?
Let's do it.
All right. So, again, just like Ben, I have a post game up for the Eagles dismantling of the Cowboys. They dominated 34-6. It's over there. It's a relatively short one because I'm going to be honest, the game was really over before it started, and but it had their own little talking point of their own. And it's weird because Jerryworld, or AT&T Stadium, has been around for some time now. It's been around since before 2017 at least. And I never realized this was an issue, but it took center stage in this Philly game, and it was the sunlight. The sunlight in the stadium, the way it's set up, is just smack dead on the players. And they talked about it after the game. They asked Jerry some questions, but Kellen Moore, they asked him, and Kellen, obviously offensive coordinator for the Cowboys for years, he said, "Oh yeah, that's something we've had to deal with the whole time, and that's something that you adjust with, and definitely something that as a coach, it's a little bit different." And they asked Jerry about it. They're like, "Hey, is there any way, maybe you put curtains to block the sun?" And then he got really upset, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's $100 million stadium. Let me just tear it down and, put blinds and curtains up." He's like, "We know where the damn sun's going to be in our own stadium." And I was like, well, if that was the case, CeeDee Lamb literally complained about it. He literally missed a touchdown in this game because the sun was blinding. And I apologize to you guys. I'm blinding you right now with the picture, just so you guys have an idea of what it looked like on the field when CeeDee had the touchdown attempt, and just how it looked on the field. And it was tough. And that's what led to like the slowish first half from Jalen. You could tell he was being affected by it. He didn't want to make any throws because he couldn't see where he was going to throw to. So I thought that was funny, and I thought Jerry's response was just classic Cowboys ignorance, and that just shows why they are where they are right now. I don't know how you felt about
that. I'm so sick of hearing from Jerry. I really am. I can't believe I'm saying this. I actually feel bad for Cowboys fans because they've gone through so much crap years now with Jerry, who he's Jerry. He's going to do things his way. He doesn't care about outside opinions. And whether it's working or not, he's going to stick to his guns. And that's exactly what the Cowboys have been now for the better part of like 8 years, 10 years. I feel for him, but this is what you get. And yeah, this was funny to me. This whole narrative, this whole week, just the conversation that came about the whole, putting up the blinds, they're putting up shades and whatnot. The fact that it's even a conversation is hilarious to me. And the fact that it didn't happen to an Eagles player, but it happens to the guy that they paid so much money to in CD Lamb. And then CD comes out and says something about it and he still shoots it down. Like it proves that much more how much of a clown Jerry really is.
The funny part is I read some articles regarding that, and it was funny because they referenced that they have curtains for the arena and that they use for certain events.
Wow.
So it's funny how the team that you're investing the most in this arena doesn't receive the same courtesy. And the stadium looks cool even if there's blinds. So I don't understand what you're trying to prove. But yeah, that's the Cowboys organization, especially from here on out. As long as Jerry is running that organization, it's going to be a zoo, it's going to be a circus, and it's not going to end well. But that was really the main takeaway from that game, which I thought was so hilarious. And the culture there's terrible because Micah was saying stuff that people took out of hand too, and he's out here having to defend himself on a podcast too after saying, "Oh, Mike McCarthy, these players that have been here longer, like Zach Martin and stuff, have done more than Mike McCarthy has." And he came out and said, "Oh, I wasn't actually crapping on Mike McCarthy. I was saying, that the players play for each other type thing." So like they have to do all that. And so it's just a dumpster fire. Their culture is terrible, and it starts from the top, and it just goes down to the players. So it's just bad down there.
Yeah, I heard Pat McAfee talking about this this whole thing earlier this week, and he really talked about it best. I'll give it just a little bit. I'll highlight the key points, but it boils down to accountability, not just from the coaching staff, or rather not just from the organization, but the coaching staff. And it's clear now that nobody respects Mike. And Mike doesn't respect them either, because nobody's really holding anybody accountable. You said it best. It's a zoo. It's this whole team, the organization is all over the place. Nothing has any, sense of form, or it's just every week it's a new narrative. It's a new story, and it's never a positive story with them. It hasn't been for a number of years.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I really do feel for Cowboys fans. I know a good amount of them. And they're struggling to be Cowboys fans. But this is part of what happens when you've been dubbed America's team for a number of years, and you, instead of holding yourself to that standard, you just believe you're already that, instead of actually putting in the effort to hold yourself to that standard as an organization.
Yeah, you and I know what it's like to deal with toxic ownership, and how that can hold the team back from reaching its true potential, even if they are funneling money. So it's just one of those things that the Cowboys were a disaster, and that was really the main takeaway from this game, because the Eagles took care of business, and they didn't really, this was a game that we talked about. It could be the gloss over game, because now we're going to talk about the potential game of the week this week, and we're going to talk about how the Eagles on Thursday night play the Commanders at home. Dude, I'm stoked. I'm stoked. The Eagles, the Commanders are coming off of a very disappointing and controversial loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. My Steelers, I'm loving it. And then and so that for as a team, that's tough. And then the Eagles on the opposite side dominated their division rival, got to rest starters in the fourth quarter, which was huge, I think. So I think that there's a few things for this matchup I'm really excited for. Obviously, this is a matchup that I personally feel confident in over the past few years. Obviously, Washington has made them competitive. They've beaten them on Thursday night before. We've had the situation. But recently, so long as Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, that trio does a very good job against this team. And now we add Saquon and Dallas Goedert's back in the mix again. And this Washington team's struggles at stopping the run. We got just the guy for the job. And not to mention, he only touched the ball 16 times last week, so he is rested and ready to go. I'm feeling really good about this, but there's a couple reasons I want to talk about it. But how are you, from the outside perspective, how are you feeling for this game?
I'm so excited for it, dude. This is game of the week for me too. And the fact this is on Thursday is just that much better, because I get to come home from work. Actually, not even that. I'll be at work, excited to watch it. I'll get home, I'm going to get to watch it, and then we roll into a Friday. And it's, hopefully it's a victory Friday for the Eagles. I think it will be, but it's going to be challenging, maybe more so than you think. but I'm stoked. This is game of the week, top to bottom, and it's been one that I've had circled from an outside perspective for a while now. Ever since we really saw Washington settle into their rhythm this season, early on in the season, even preseason, we didn't really think the Commanders would do much. We thought Jaden would be good, but he would be making some early errors and mistakes, and there'd be a lot of growing issues. And obviously, they going into the season, they didn't really have a wide receiver core. They had Terry, but that was about it. Well, they're finding production top to bottom, and it's not just on an offensive end. Defensively, they're finding ways to get it done too. And this just has all the makings for a prime time, like season setter style game, like for both teams. If the Eagles beat the Commanders at that point, like it feels like the division is yours. And the Commanders will feel the same way from the other side of things, because you guys are really running away with it. It was never going to be close in the first place, but to just get that first one under your belt, you're going to feel damn good going into that second matchup.
Yeah, and so the stakes, right? I think what makes this game so hyped up is the stakes. Unfortunately, they lost last week, which was what I was hoping for. That's, it's hard to control how the other teams do, so you can only focus on yourself. But the Eagles are back on top of the division. They got their bye week. The Commanders' bye week is after this week, I believe. It's either after this week or next week. But the Eagles, and it makes it tougher because if the Eagles win this week, we go to 8-2. We get a 2-game lead in the division for Washington. And then our next 2 weeks are against the Rams and the Ravens. So if we win, it allows us room for error going into these are the last 2 games are going to be really the toughest games we play until we play the Commanders and the Steelers again. Those would be the next 2 after that. But then we have Washington, then we have the Panthers, the Cowboys, and the Giants again. So those are 3 very easy winnable games in that stretch. If we take care of business in these difficult games, we're set up to win the division and potentially snag the 1 seed, depending on how the Lions finish down the stretch. So this is huge, and I love that it's late in the season. I love that it's a primetime game. These are the games that our boys usually step up for. So this is the part, like, this is where the potential playoff experience for this team, the Super Bowl run for this team, that they've been there, done that, hopefully shows up in this game. And listen, like, the Commanders might get Brian Robinson Jr. He's been out the past few weeks. He's a huge reason for their running success. Jaden they've done a great job protecting him in terms of not putting him in a spot where he has to be the hero for this team. He's made awesome plays, but they throw the ball 27th, like the amount in the attempts that they take in the league, and they rush their top 5 in rushing attempts in the league. So they like to make a statement and set up the pass with the run, not have to put the ball in Jaden's hand to make that many mistakes. So if the Eagles can neutralize the run game, the matchup I'm most excited for, dude, is our corners versus this receiving core. Obviously, you got Luke McCaffrey, you got Noah Brown, and Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin lines up on the left side of the field. And on that side of the field is my boy Quinyon Mitchell, and that's going to be the primetime matchup. And he's been doing insanely well this year. Obviously, doesn't have an interception, but no one's really throwing his way. They're only throwing to Quinyon about 5 times a game, and he's holding them for under 10 yards a game. And for those who I understand the argument, they haven't played that many great teams, and that's the same thing with this defense. This defense in this 5-game win streak has done some historic numbers, and I don't have the numbers on me now, but I know that they're the first team and only team in NFL history to hold 2 separate teams to under 50 yards passing in a game. So that's
wow.
And that was against the Giants and the Cowboys. So it's tough. This defense has been insane. But when we factor in the one good team that they really did beat, that was the Bengals with Jamar Chase. And mind you, this was the Joe Burrow-Jamar Chase combo that put up 260 yards on the Baltimore Ravens this past Thursday. So that's saying something. And that wasn't just Quinyon, that was Cooper DeJean as well. So Terry McLaurin lines up the most on the left side and in the slot. He's going to be seeing our rookies more than anyone else. So I'm so excited to see how they look. This is the biggest test for them in terms of a guy who's truly just going to be on your side, and the targets are going to be funneled to him. So I am beyond excited to see this matchup. I know Quinyon is not afraid. I know Cooper's not afraid. So if we limit the run and force, I'm not afraid of having these guys go one-on-one with him. So that's the matchup I'm most excited for. That's the matchup that could make the biggest difference in this game. We haven't played a scrambling quarterback like Jaden before, so I'm interested to see how we handle that. Obviously, in practice, Kenny Pickett's got some wheels on him and Jalen, so I'm sure they probably simulate some of this stuff, but it's kind of been a walkthrough week. So you're not going to get that same level of practice. So I'm interested to see if Jaden maybe gets on his legs a little bit and maybe he dares us a little bit on with this dual threat this week. So there's a lot of ways the Commanders can attack, and I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Our defense has been great, but I do think this is just kind of one of those games. It's a short week. Guys are going to be tired. It's going to be a little bit harder to tackle the same way. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. If I would put a score on it now, I'm going to say I want to give our defense credit, but I just don't think it's going to be that kind of game. I think it's going to be 35-31 Philly. It's going to be close. It's a divisional game. It's going to be at home, but I think Philly's going to be able to put them away at the very end there. And I think I think Saquon's going to have a huge game. I think AJ owns these corners. It's not going to be, he's been going up against them for the past 2 years, and his biggest and best games always come against this team, and same with Devontae. So it's going to be a fireworks show, dude. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fireworks show for sure. And I think high scoring, you nailed it on the head. My mind and my gut tells me go with the Eagles. My heart tells me go with the Commanders. And I've been on the fence about this game for a number of weeks now for multiple reasons. For the sake of this exercise and the fun of it, I'm taking the Commanders.
Dude, that's fair.
And no matter who I took, it was always going to be the same score. I've got pretty close to you. I've got a 38-35 game.
Okay.
I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think these are two offenses that have really found ways to really click. You talked about who they're getting back this week. That run game's going to be on the ground and moving again if they get him back. This is an exciting matchup. There's a lot on hand. Guys are, like you said, they're tired. Tackling is going to be harder, but in terms of moving that football and putting points up, that's the one area I don't think is going to be an issue in this game for either side. So I think that somehow, some way, the Commanders will find a way to squeeze this one out, eke it out. But we will see.
I know the matchup I'm excited for. I'm tired of all this Jaden Daniels is better than Jalen Hurts conversation. I'm like, give Jalen Hurts his respect. He's been playing like one of the best QBs in the league over the past 5 weeks. Jaden is dynamic, and I'm excited if this veteran defense, but it's also young, but if this defense can trouble him a little bit. And I'm just excited. I've seen a little bit of Jaden, but I haven't, this is the game that I really get to dissect him a bit. So I'm really excited to see now. It's week 11. He's been through a lot. I'm excited to see how he does. And this is a huge Jalen game. Jalen needs to come out and duel. But I know that when it comes to these kind of games, Jalen always shows up to duel. He's always done it. He's done it against Mahomes twice. He's done it against Allen. Obviously, the collapse last year was a little bit difficult. But in the big games this year against the best quarterbacks, Jordan Love was talked about it early in the season, the very first game, Joe Burrow in the middle of the season, he shows up and plays his best games. So I'm confident that this team is very well aware of the stakes. This team is very well aware of what's in front of them, and they want it. I think this team wants to prove that they are the Super Bowl contender that we always kind of thought they were. But you get a cookie cutter schedule and you don't get a chance to prove it. People just think you're beating bad teams. So this is for both teams. The Commanders have lost games against the big boys, the Ravens and the Steelers. And if they lose again to the Eagles, they're going to be like, okay, this team's good, but they still have they're a few steps away from where we think they are. And then, the Eagles are the legit Super Bowl contenders in here. I think if the Commanders win, they're going to be like, oh man, both of these teams, maybe they split and the conversation's different down the road. Maybe Washington does get the one on the road, but if we win this one here, it sets us up because we have the tiebreakers that they don't, especially if we go out there and beat one of Baltimore or Pittsburgh down the road. So that would be huge too. It sets us up. So we just need to split. But this one at home, like this is the game like where we can take this division by the hands and really start running away with it. And starting 8-2, having 8 wins or better in the first 10 games for the third consecutive freaking season, it's just gonna show that we've just been the most consistent team. And then it's on to the final push. So I'm beyond excited for this one.
It's a primetime matchup. It's 2 electric teams. This is gonna be a fun Thursday night, dude. I'm really looking forward to it.
I know I can't get home soon enough on Thursday. I'm gonna be so ready, dude. I'm so ready. Yeah, and I'm excited to do that post game pod. Regardless of what happens, this is gonna be a perfect barometer game to see just where we're at against a truly legitimate team. So I'm hopefully we'll see what the strategy is from both teams. We'll see who comes out more prepared and who's ready. So I'm hyped.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's move on. Let's finish off here with our Chargers check-in. The Chargers, again, continue to win. They played the Titans and won 27-17. Justin Herbert looked awesome. This team, continues to, build a little bit. And we saw a lot of the mic'd up this week was Harbaugh just gassing up Herbert the whole time, calling him a beast. He's like, oh, half man, half beast. This is my guy. So I think the Harbaugh effect, like we've talked about so often, is really bearing fruit. And I do think, like we've mentioned, each and every week, they're figuring out kind of how they want to attack teams. And I'm excited to see what happens for them. They got the Bengals, and the Bengals are not an easy out. They got, their defense is going to get tested against this offense. Joe Burrow and them got the added rest. So we'll see how that is. How are you feeling about this team going into this little stretch here?
It's a similar little barometer game for them. You're 6-3, and you're seeing a Bengals team that they're 4-6, but this is a Bengals team that can still do some damage to you if you don't take them as they should be taken. If you take them lightly, they can easily beat you without really looking back or without a second thought. So this is a really good stack up game, and I'm excited to see how they execute, how they go out and play. It's Sunday Night Football. This is a really good opportunity, not just for the Chargers, but for the NFL to really get a look at what this team can look like in the brightest of lights, because that's what the playoffs are going to be, and that's a place that the Chargers have not been consistently, is to the playoffs. And this is a game that Bengals team, with exception to some weird stuff that happens, they should be a consistent playoff matchup and threat, and especially in the AFC. So talk about that AFC, rivalry. This is one that you can, kind of establish early on. Is Herbert against Burrow, and these are 2 quarterbacks that really haven't had the best of weapons to their ability. I think Burrow's had obviously the best weapons for the better parts of his career, but Herbert's got a coach that knows how to coach. And that's something that he hasn't had since he came into the league. And so we're starting to see a real Justin Herbert against the league. And that's a large reason why I believed in this team going into the season. And a large reason why they're 6-3. I mean, it's the Harbaugh style of play from both Harbaughs. And it's in full effect. You gotta love what you see from this Chargers team. They're not backing down to any competition week in and week out. And when a bad play happens, they answer right back with a good play. So this is the style of team that you want to see in this phase of the Chargers era. And this is a great week for them to really make some noise.
Yeah, this is a great barometer test. This is a desperate Bengals team that's not out of the playoff picture yet.
Somehow.
They're in a very similar position. You guys are fighting for a wild card spot. This is the one. Like, so for the Bengals, they're licking their chops to get this opportunity. They think that, for this will be a great test to see, can the Chargers even win a playoff game if they get there? And if they beat a team like the Bengals, that might be a great chance to be like, okay, they can hang with some of this top level competition. But you got division rival the Broncos right behind you too, and the Dolphins are going to try and make some noise too. So you got teams behind you that feel like you're going to be the spot they can take, that you're going to be the team that falls off. So this is going to be huge for them. All right. So let's push on to our betting picks of the week. Ben, would you like me to start or would you like to start on this one?
I'll kick it off. I'll kick
Okay.
it off for us. So obviously, Eagles are favored 3.5 points at home on Thursday night. And I just said it. I just made my choice. The Commanders are winning this game. Doesn't matter the score because they're winning the game. So that's my first cover.
I love that. I love that. So, a team that I've consistently been on this whole time. My favorite team. And honestly, on the Commanders thing for you, I think that like the Commanders are to you what the Cardinals are to me.
100%.
Like I love rooting for them, even though they're your division rival, and I feel bad, but they're too good. They're too fun not to watch. Um,
Exactly.
but another team that fits that bucket for me is the Steelers, dude. The Steelers just beat the Commanders. This is a tough game. They're cooking. They're 7-3 or 7-2. They're whatever their record is. They have 7 wins. They're on top of the AFC North, and they face the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens are 3.5 point favorites on the road. Lamar Jackson's 1-3 all time against the Steelers. And listen, this Ravens offense is unbelievable. I don't think that if the Steelers win this game, I don't think it's going to be because Lamar sucks in this game. I think this offense have really figured out a rhythm, but Steelers, dude, the Steelers offense is going to be able to do enough on this Ravens defense to potentially just keep Lamar off the field, and their defense is going to make enough plays. Like TJ Watt is going to game wreck this game at least twice and set them back and maybe seal the game. So I have them winning because the Ravens are favored. No, Steelers are going to win this one at home and really take a stranglehold on that division. So I'm excited for that one.
Well, that was one of my picks, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a different pick now.
Okay.
So look, Kansas City Chiefs go into Buffalo, and Buffalo's a 2.5 point favorite. Now I know like things technically open up. The home team is a 3 point favorite. No, like in no way, shape, or form is there any reason why you should have the Bills ever favored in any game against the Chiefs? I mean, look at the history. Look at the past 5 years, 6 years. It's just not a thing. So I'm sorry, but I hate to do it, but it's going to be the Chiefs in this one against the Bills.
Yeah, Mahomes, the all-time greatest quarterback against the spread when he's an underdog. He's like 12-1, and that's an underdog.
It helps when you have 3 more players out there.
Hey, I feel you. Hey. we'll talk on that later. Okay, so my second game of the week, Rams at Patriots, and it's not going to go the way you want. Or think. The Rams just come off a disappointing loss on Monday night at home to the Dolphins, and they got to fly all the way across the country and go play a semi-frisky Patriots team with Drake May doing his thing, whooping on Caleb Williams. I think that 5-point favorites, even if I think the Patriots are going to hang. Their O-line might struggle against this D-line that the Rams has. Jared Verse has proven to be a very good player as a rookie, so he could blow up this whole game and ruin my whole plan. And every time I bet on the Patriots, they failed me miserably. But I was with Jacoby, so hopefully Drake May, the young gun, can maybe show me a thing or two. And the Rams offense, I mean, they're struggling. Their O-line also they were healthy. They were fully healthy, and the Dolphins were able to have their way with them. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that this could be the surprise game. You come off of a disappointing loss on Monday. You're starting to lose your grip a little bit on that division, and you're playing a Patriots team that has really nothing to lose. So it might be the shock one. So that's my shock pick for the week out of my 3.
No, I love that. All right, so I want to do one thing with you real quick, a little exercise.
Okay.
I'm between 2 right now, and I want to make this decision with you. All right,
Okay.
so first one is Vegas Raiders at Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are 7.5 point favorites. Second one is Jacksonville Jaguars at Detroit Lions. Lions are favored 13 points. So of those teams, obviously both the home teams and both the favorites are going to win. The question is, do the Lions win by 2 touchdowns, or do the Dolphins win by more than, a touchdown and a half?
I would say the Lions. I'd bet on the Lions. The Dolphins are I think the Dolphins are inconsistent. Plus, they have to travel. They played Monday and they have to travel all the way back. So they're going the same distance as the Raiders, basically. So it's like the the Lions, man, like the Jags don't have any. They're not gonna do anything against them. They're gonna play
Yeah.
Mac Jones. Trevor Lawrence is still hurt. Like, Mac Jones sucks, unfortunately, and he showed that on Sunday.
He's terrible.
He's terrible. So I would feel more confident in the Lions winning by 2 touchdowns than I would the Dolphins winning by a full touchdown against the Raiders.
And that's kind of where I was at. My only thing that got me kind of second guessing it was the whole Goff throwing 4 picks by, halftime, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's insane. Who are you, Brock Purdy on Christmas? Like, it was head scratching to me. I mean, shout out to them. They were able to overcome a lot of crap and get the dub.
I'm
But
annoyed with that.
yeah, I know that could have been your first seed,
Could
huh?
have been my 1 seed. Yeah, I'm pissed.
That's tough.
I was mad.
All right, fine. Yeah, you've convinced me. I'm taking Lions. They're gonna cover by 2 touchdowns at least.
Yeah, this one will be a statement game. I think Goff's going to play it a lot more carefully. Not to say that he won't make those same kind of decisions, but I think that it's going to go his way this time. I think it's a good bounce back game for them.
Yeah, it's the worst team.
Yeah, seriously. So let me make sure I got this right. My third pick of the week is going to be the Denver Broncos and Atlanta Falcons. The Broncos are 2-point favorites at home. I like the Broncos in this one, dude. They took the Chiefs to a field goal that got blocked. I think this defense is legit. I think this defense, if you're able to hold Mahomes and company to 16 points, like I think you have a very good shot of holding a Kirk Cousins-led offense to a pretty low number in this one. I think Kirk's going to get under pressure. This D-line is legit. So I'm very curious to see. I maybe the offense might hold them back a little bit, but if they win by a field goal, they cover. So I think that they're going to be put in a position at home, Mile High City. The Falcons are coming off some disappointing performances. They just lost to the Saints. Like I think that they're going to feel a little bit desperate, but it's going to be a tough place to play. And that Denver Broncos defense is unforgiving right now. So I buy that this defense will win them the game.
No, I love that pick. I think that's a really solid pick.
All right, so we finished off with our betting pits of the week. We had a very action-packed pod for you guys today. Ben, how are you feeling? Any final thoughts before we head out here?
I'm good, man. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Fly, Eagles, fly. We're going to kick some Commander ass on Thursday. I'm excited, hopefully. Hopefully I'm not eating my words. But hey,
let's go, Commanders.
That's what the post-game pod's for. So this was episode 65 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on any of our social medias that are located up above, or for you audio listeners out there, the links to the descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, follow, rate, review, any comments on the show. We appreciate you guys. We're slowly growing each and every week, and we love the support, and we love to grow a community with you guys. So we're reaching a level that we can eventually start reaching out to you guys more often. So we're hoping that we can continue to grow with you guys each and every week. But I am Marcos Conan Negron. Beside me here, as always, is
Benny the Jet.
All right, y'all. We love y'all. We will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.